Welcome to the AdTech Forum, our 5-part series on supply, brought to you by Cadent. We're really excited for our next guest, Jared Wilichinsky. Jared, welcome.
Jared is a 20-year veteran in streaming and the ad tech space. Between CBS Interactive and Paramount Plus, his operational chops and knowledge of the inner workings of this industry is quite impressive. Jared lives in San Francisco area and is excited to hop right on. Welcome, Jared.
Thank you. And I am very excited to be here.
Jared, love the shirt, love the Gator gear. Also behind you, it's so on brand, just representing Paramount, representing your home team. To get started, as one of the most premium content providers, how do you prioritize maintaining brand safety and quality content while maximizing revenue through your partnerships with SSPs?
So, being Paramount, and clearly we control the content that we put into the platforms. We control the and that's for your owned and operated, all the cable nets, CBS Broadcast, CBS News, and even on Pluto. We know exactly what we're onboarding. It's not like it's the Wild West where anyone can do whatever. So, when it comes to overall brand safety, our answer is it's 100% brand safe. This is, all linear content, which has to abide by a lot of laws. It has a lot of standards and practices that go into what we air on TV. So it's all brand safe according to us. And even on Pluto, we're clearly, we know what we're onboarding. And again, it might be brand safe to us, but brand safety is the eye of the beholder. Is what it's to me is very different to you, which is very different to God.
So, as obviously working at a top premium streaming company and television company, how do you decide on where you make that premium inventory available as it relates to the SSP partners that you select and market?
So, I think it's very important to kind of break down a little bit what is the SSP making available to market? Because there's different strategies that go into working with an SSP. We have a very large, and I would, they're watching, the best sales force on the planet. We are a global company. An SSP is a facilitator to a connection to our agencies and advertiser partners. We are very flexible in how we make our inventory available to them, and in certain cases, certain transparency that a direct connection gets via an SSP, and then of course we work with SSPs as well in an indirect marketplace. And the content that goes into the direct and indirect, there's a big difference of what goes in there. Stuff you see on P+, Halo or what's that? Never Seen Again. What's up? That's not going to be available in an indirect marketplace, but that content is available in an SSP from our direct connections we have with our with the buy side community. That sales is Stripe.
So, Jared, could you share some insights into the strategies and best practices that a content provider like yourself would ensure alignment? How do you ensure alignment between the messaging of the values and interests of the audience and what you're trying to do and the SSPs? It's just, you have so much inventory. Help us understand that.
Yeah, it's, if I'm in a dozen meetings a day, this is probably a good part why. It takes a lot of coordination internally and just as much coordination externally. Not necessarily in, the ad operations org. Do we have some, specialists or points of contact? But in our, yield and programmatic, strategy by Leo O'Connor, we have folks that, only talk to SSPs and manage those relationships. We have folks that only talk to DSPs and manage those relationships. And we all coordinate. This is a story. This is the messaging. These are the rules. And it involves a lot of different people to understand what do we want to put in here? What don't we want to put in here? What are the rules for this DSP? What are the, unique opportunities for this SSP? And, those trying to make it all work together, because the most important thing is as we're gathering demand, we need to construct the best pod possible, to your point of like, at the end of the day, there's a user sitting in the garage somewhere else, not here, that needs to see a well-constructed pod that, hopefully the advertising message is relevant to them, just as important, if not more important, competitive separation, frequency across pods as we have 50 different demand types coming into the ecosystem.
You speak a lot about the monetization strategy and obviously streamlining your operations in regards to your SSP team and your DSP team. But as we see, users evolving and their preferences, their consumption habits changing, how does Paramount leverage data and audience insights to inform the content creation and distribution strategies, as well as, optimizing the ad placements for the most impact that they can possibly make for a viewer?
Yeah. So, it wouldn't be a panel or an interview without saying AI, and we're using, but of course, this is what we are. We're using machine learning, AI. We know, the great thing about controlling our experience. Most of our consumption is on owned and operated, but there's a lot that is in distribution between, the traditional cable and broadcast business on MVPDs, or, even something like Pluto or CBS News or CBS Sports HQ lives in channel environments that are, Samsung TV plus LG, Vizio, but at least on our O&O, we know what you're watching. We know how much of what you are watching, and then we're able to do recommendations, within the app itself as core products, or just as important, we treat our house inventory as if we're paying for it. Every single thing is targeted. Everything has a strategy behind it. There's no like, oh, I'm just going to put this up to fill time. So we leverage that to drive engagement elsewhere. Now, how we get the right message back in from an advertiser against that content, it's still early days on terms of like really aligning the sentiment and mood of what you're watching to the correct message. I know there's other people in our space that are really starting to make strides on this, and we've been looking at it as well. It's like, how do you get the this moment and this content, or this kind of ad and this content during this moment? It's just, how do you scale it, and how do you price it? How do you plan for it? That's where it gets a little bit challenging. But in a programmatic world, as you market, you put stuff into an SSP, that's a great leverage for potentially direct sales versus indirect sales. And it's always having that, there needs to be a difference between the two on when we have a direct connection with the client versus like it's the incest of bidding in 50 different ways and what's available in that.
How do you guys in particular navigate through the complexities of like cross-platform convergence? How does an SSP play a role in facilitating that type of seamless integration and optimization for ad inventory, especially when we're talking about multiple channels and devices?
Yeah, I wouldn't, an SSP is, we have to work with multiple SSPs, whether it's by choice or not. There's a lot of influence coming in from the buy side on the ad tech you use on the sell side, which is, it's great that we're able to be nimble, and like money's green. We don't care where it's coming from. We're going to figure out a way to take it. But it introduces challenges. But, and this is as you have like, it is a certain pipe into our ecosystem. At the end of the day, the ad server, and there's a big difference between an ad server and an SSP. The ad server is the brain around understanding deduplication and understanding the holistic ad decision, at least across digital. Linear, you're then, potentially working with, Inscape, and you're using ACR data to try to understand linear exposure, and then you're converting that into audience targeting or exclusions for audience targeting to maximize that kind of deduplicated story between, traditional linear delivery and something that is dynamic at.
Jared, when it comes to supply, what are some industry predictions that you have for where we're going?
So, transparency and kind of more signals in a bid request out of like, what exactly am I running on is, extremely important, because we started this off. Brand safety means something very different to us than it does to Clorox, than it does to Procter, than it does to Paramount Pictures family a little bit. So what does that mean? But we are still in a tech standard, and this is something I know the IAB Tech Lab. A lot of us are having discussions on this. Is a bid request is like, here's a bunch of information, and then God knows what the hell's going to happen on the other side. It's used for reporting, it's used for blocking, it's used for targeting, and there is a big privacy law in place in the U.S. that you can't combine identity and what you're watching. It's called the Video Privacy Protection Act from 1986 or whatever it is. So, like, the way the bidding OpenRTB mechanisms today are not conducive to privacy, not conducive to, business elements of what we're trying to achieve as a sales team. We don't want people cherry picking individual shows, but we also want to be transparent as to what you're running on. Today, there's no way to tell the difference in OpenRTB. There's definitely work that needs to be done as to what's reportable, what's targetable and reportable. Is a DSP going to respect those signals? And as an SSP puts them out, and there's a lot of links in that chain that we have to get.
Jared, this has been incredible. Thank you for being here today. That actually brings us to the end of this episode of the AdTech Forum. It's sponsored by Cadent. We've really covered a wide range of topics with our guest, Jared Wilichinsky. Stay tuned for future episodes, and please follow us on LinkedIn and YouTube. Thank you, Jared and Jeremy, for being here today, and see everyone next week.